the way to go. We saw other issues with that because it is in a commercial industrial area as far as zoning. It's better to take it, end up seeing that on the tax rules and for us to get money than to put substantial amount of money, because even if they would come to this board and get it approved, it would increase the town's debt more than we already are today. One of the things in both the advisory board financial policy as well as the goals that were set by the last select board and their goals, it basically says that the town, and this is also, we looked at other communities, and the DOR recommendation, that debt should not exceed 5% of the general fund budget. Well, that's $12 million. Quick math tells you that's about $600,000. Last year, the debt alone, long-term debt, was $808,000. I'm sure we would have not had to end up doing as larger override if we had the $200,000 to spend somewhere else on equipment, including new police cars, chief. We looked at all of this stuff. I mean, we delved into quite a bit of stuff, including the fact, and probably the main fact that came down was that we saw that at least the select board was looking at forming a committee to look at all buildings. With these finances, as well as having it, you look at all the town buildings, the advisory board unanimously recommended a no vote. Lastly, on selling town asset, East Templeton School. That's in a village district, as I already said. There's issues with who you're going to sell it to. There's issues with the building today as it is, and I don't believe we can end up getting anywhere near the money that we should for that particular building, and it's probably more valuable to the communities to save. And we looked at it from a cost analysis of one building versus the next. The projected costs that we have, about 1/5 of the cost of doing 252. I think the citizens can end up seeing that that's a better deal. A little cheaper is better. You may end up having an older building, but that's fully upgraded for use. That's not tearing down walls, that's using the building as it is and upgrade all the services that you have. Again, the advisory board unanimously recommended a no vote. Lastly, and I would try to wait to take and end up handing this last document, is about the requirements for budget submitted to the advisory board plans of action and recommendations to the Board of Selectmen when we have our meeting, and hopefully if you could end up polling your board to end up having a joint meeting to discuss some of the issues around budget. We would like to have that on November 6th, if at all possible. So I'm gonna leave it there because, like I said, there's some things that the advisory board can end up just going so far as the finances go, and there's things that need to be accomplished by the Board of Selectmen around some of the issues related to the finances of the community. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to end up having we vote on or something or other, having us get together in a joint meeting, if we could, to take and end up discussing this.
What? Yes, Pete.
You said through you, you said something about this man, about what's his recommendations? You first started.
No, he was at the pre-town meeting when he heard us actually work through all of the process. He saw us actually sit there and talk about each of these issues, so it wasn't, I'm saying that he was there at the meeting, he saw the process that we used to end up going through and discussing it in detail as to the cost the options, et cetera, to the community. And that's what we talked about here.
First thing is,
Any questions? I should ask one question.
as a selectman and from a personal point, I agree with what you've said, with the exception
Yep.
of stipends for elected officials, especially at this time. I do not believe that with the override passing,
Oh, we're not recommending.
no,
Okay.
please let me finish. I do not believe with the override passing that was permission from the voters for us to go start throwing money around again and go back to expanding the government. I think they did that. Part of it was, or most of it was, to keep town services and to take care of the town employees. So moving forward on the next budget cycle, and I know it won't happen this year because going to ask for an override in the spring is just not going to happen. But looking forward for the future, I think the first thing that should be looked at is taking care of the town employees and the town assets.
We agree.
Before we even contemplating giving elected people.
Maybe I didn't communicate that correctly.
Anything. As I said, I think the voters okayed this override with the intent of maintaining town services and taking care of the town employees. They are still, and they're not getting a raise, they are just getting hours back, which I know it does increase their pay, but they are just going back to where they were 2 years ago. So they haven't gone anywhere forward. And I don't think by any stretch of the imagination, the voters have, said, oh yeah, go on a spending spree. I do agree, and I've already spoken to this, and it's been brought up at a meeting, of centralized purchasing of materials, inventorying all town equipment and supplies, and taking better care of the buildings and equipment that we have, because one of the first things I hear from many people is, why should we give you money? Why should we build a new one? You don't take care of the stuff that you already have. So as far as taking care of assets and that, I 100% agree. But like I said, speaking just personally and as a selectman whose job it is to okay the budgets and look at, spending of money, I don't think we should be looking to put those things back
No, we're not advocating.
in the future or if at all. Because I don't think that's what the voters gave us permission to do by this override. They were looking for town services, which equates to the town employees, and that should be our, if we're gonna look to spend money, it's a combination of taking care of our assets, what we own, what they own, the taxpayers, not we, us, and the employees. Because all the employees are doing it, they're going, starting back in 2012, they're just back where they were then. And here it is coming up on 14, so again, 3 years, they're just spinning their tires. And as Chief has pointed out, and that's just one example, because they happen to spend a good deal of money to train people, you come here, you get trained up, and you start looking elsewhere. And $50K a pop, it's way cheaper to keep them and pay them a little bit more. And hopefully we get to this point sooner rather than later. That is my thoughts and opinions.
Our intent was not to take and end up saying that stipends should come back. Our intent is to take and end up tracking what other towns are doing, and when this town, if it ever decides to have stipends reinstituted, we would have a history of what communities are doing, and so that we could make a recommendation from the advisory board to equitable stipends and not end up, because there are some communities that actually have a bylaw that no stipends are given out to anybody. And there's stipends of $1, and there's stipends that, like us,
Yes.
we used to have $5,000 to $6,000 for some of the stipends.
But I just don't want the taxpayers to think or hear or be given a hint that they voted for, this override and now we're gonna start
No, that wasn't
spending it. 'Cause
that wasn't
I
our
don't think
intent.
That's, surely wasn't their intent. I don't believe at all. Any other members of the board have anything?
I like the idea of looking at all the elementary schools and assessing them. Many of them are in very, very bad shape. We've tried to get a roof on Templeton Center, probably going on 10 years now. It doesn't fix itself. So I think that's a very good recommendation, to look at all of the elementary schools and try to get them
Yep.
And
repaired.
it's cheaper to maintain what you have than to
Right.
let it go and then pay to tear it down and pay to rebuild it if you just put
Each
a
of these
little bit.
was recommended because we thought in the long run, it would, one, consolidate government, two, it would give us buildings if we want to consolidate, when and if the elementary school is built, and then we would end up having some savings during the time up until they move out of that building.
And getting them, deemed culturally significant, is important, because then that does give us the access to the CPC, and that is a big fund of money that's, sitting there and is very underutilized, that as taxpayers we pay every year.
Okay, so were you looking for a vote for a
I
combined
would
meeting?
like, I would like to take and end up having you vote for us to have a joint town meeting so we can end up planning on that.
Is that something you were
A
looking
joint
for
meeting.
tonight?
Pardon me?
Is that something you were looking for tonight?
If
Yes,
if
I
I
know.
could, if I could end up twisting your arm a little bit, yes, I would. Because
That is,
the sooner that we end up doing this, the better we can get into the budget cycle.
the 11th is the Veterans, that's how.
Yeah, that's a Monday, so
Yeah,
we
14th
would have to move our meeting date again.
Right, we'd be meeting that Tuesday
Okay, the 12th and the 25th.
if we want to keep our agenda. And then,
Yeah.
The 18th. I don't have a problem with voting to meet tonight. If anything happens, comes up, whatever, I mean, it's easier to cancel the meeting than it
Then
is
to
to
set one up.
schedule it.
Yeah, because our next selectmen meeting will be the 28th. And that's kind of too late to try to schedule something
Yeah.
for the 6th to get everybody on board.
Yeah, so, all right then, I will entertain a motion to have a joint Board of Selectmen Advisory Board meeting on Wednesday, November 6th, 2013, 6:30 at 690 Patriots Road.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Done with the land. The next thing is action on appointments. We have two. We have the Narragansett School District School Budget Subcommittee and a Town Building Assessment Committee. At our last meeting, it was discussed, it was voted on to create this committee for two selectmen, a member of the capital planning, a member of the planning board, and an at-large member. The selectmen, myself, Jeff Bennett, Selectman Doug Morrison, the town coordinator would act as an advisor. The at-large member is Robert Mitchell. From planning is Christoph Chartier. From capital planning is Charles Carroll, who also serves on the planning board. And for the Narragansett Regional School District School Budget Subcommittee, we have Gordon Moore and Joel Thompson. These are one-year appointments. They would expire June 30th, 2014, and would be renewed at that time. If the assessment committee, if it's, appears to be needed to continue, it would be renewed at that time. Do any of the selectmen having a problem with just voting this as a whole? Just, I don't think there's anything really controversial.
As I said at the last meeting, any documentation that I have on any of these buildings, because in doing East Templeton, I did pull a lot, I'd be more than willing to take and end up coming to that board and presenting that. It would probably save them a lot of time in gathering information.
I'll make a
Thank you.
motion to appoint the people as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carried, and that is done. Okay, the little trick-or-treaters are all set. The next item is discuss a letter to Senator Brewer about the special investigation for the town, which is Senate Bill 623. It had been voted on to send a letter and an act relative to request an investigation by the Attorney General into the following incidents in the town of Templeton. It was a petition from Senator Stephen M. Brewer and our state rep Denise Andrews. And this was requested by Selectman Farrell. So if you would like to speak on this.
Actually, I would. It's been almost a year since this was voted on at a special town meeting. And it has a number, it was filed, but I believe it's sitting in the Judiciary Committee.
It is.
And there has been no hearing scheduled to hear the issue. I was just at the State House today for a different hearing, and once bills come up and they're filed with whatever committee, that committee will hold a hearing and hear a number of bills. And you can go and give testimony, and that's what I did today. I went and gave testimony. I think it's appropriate for the Board of Selectmen, since this was something that was voted on by the voters of the town of Templeton, not just the Board of Selectmen, to follow up with both Senator Brewer and Representative Andrews and ask when the hearing would be scheduled.
As a side note, in September, I sent an email and then received a phone call from a representative, an aide to Senator Stephen Brewer, about this very article. I was told it was in committee, and they usually give, and she said she checked on it, and there wasn't any schedule for the committee to meet. But the aide told me that usually they give a week or two notice when the, because these are generally public hearings, when it comes out of committee, that there'd be generally a week or two notice that this was going to be heard, and if anybody wanted to submit written testimony or go to the State House, go in front of the committee and speak one way or another. I was told sometimes they really put the information out there, and other times it's just a blurb on the State House News. I received that via email, and I watch it closely, and I've not seen anything. And there is a time limit. If this goes so long, I believe it's next month.
I think it is.
Where, and again, I'm pretty sure it is a time limit. It lingers in committee, which is sometimes the way they do things down there if they don't want to discuss a certain topic. So it was put in front of the voters. The Board of Selectmen voted to put it before the voters. The voters voted on it and sent it down there. And I really have no problem with trying to nudge them and see if they're actually going to do anything with this. I believe the chairman of the Judiciary Committee is running for a congressional seat, DC, for the state of Mass. So, I guess once again, the board could send a letter signed by the board to Senator Brewer and Representative Andrews and ask them if they could perhaps gently nudge the chairman of this committee, particularly since Stephen Brewer is chairman of the Senate Ways and Means, and as I said, I believe she is running for a congressional seat. If they are going to do anything with this, they are our reps. They do get voted on by the citizens of the Commonwealth, and they shouldn't sit on it and just let it die. They should actually make a decision. That's what they're there for. Whether it's popular, nice, whether they want to or not, they should vote on it one way or another. Yes.
You said there's a deadline on this.
I believe if it's a
What
bill.
happens then? Does it just die, or they have
Yes.
to do something?
No, it goes to committee, and
So,
if the
as far
power
as they're
brokers
concerned,
don't want to, it's like the Speaker of the
throw this
House,
in the wastebasket and forget about it.
pretty much. If the Speaker of the House doesn't
Yeah.
want to hear
If
something,
you're aware of the deadline, though, if you're gonna write them a letter, let them know you're aware of the deadline, and that there's a big concern here about them doing some action.
Yeah, I would agree, especially if there's a looming deadline, then we should definitely be
Yeah,
rattling.
it's probably out of sight, out of mind right down there right now about it.
yes. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure there's,
I read
they
something,
think.
there was a whole timeline.
And, so,
Another option is that, as citizens, you have the option to write a letter to Senator Brewer asking him to contact the chairman of the committee to have a hearing on this bill. You have a right to do that. So, but I think at a minimum, as a board, that's why I brought it up, I think we should send another letter asking for some action on this issue.
so, Ken? I would entertain a motion to send a letter to Senator Brewer and Representative Andrews, signed by all members of the board, I think, rather than just have it signed by the chairman. If they have all the selectmen sign it, they know that we're all in favor of this. So I would entertain a motion to write a letter, the board sign it, and send it to our reps.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And yes. All right. The next item is a special election to fill the vacant seat for the Board of Selectmen. There is a citizen's petition that was submitted to the town clerk. We, the undersigned, are qualified voters of the town of Templeton and request to have a special town election to fill the vacancy on the Board of Selectmen. This was brought to the town clerk. She writes, "I'm informing the Board of Selectmen there are 210 valid signatures on the citizen's petition to have a special town election to fill the vacancy on the Board of Selectmen. I believe there's a minimum, if we vote to have an election date, if we vote to do this, to set a date, it's like we couldn't hold it next week or the week after. I believe there's a minimum of 65 days for, announce it, file papers, get them back and do all the stuff. It can be set, beyond 65 days or beyond. So if we counted, what is it, 17th, we're
Christmas Day.
pretty much like near Christmas. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, somewhere around
Christmas
there.
Eve, I think.
Uh,
Election on Christmas Eve.
Hey, Santa Claus. So, as I said, we can't have it any sooner than 65 days out. It can go beyond that. So, yes, Tom?
What's the cost on an election?
I believe it hovers around the $5,000 figure.
Does anyone have that kind of money?
Uh,
That was my question.
It's a material, we have to do it.
Do we have the money? Not really, but it is a citizen's petition. 200 registered voters, put forth. And so it has to happen. I mean, it has to go before the voters. It has to, this has to go.
Understand, but why, feasibly thinking, why wouldn't they have done that prior to this Proposition 2.5 election that we just had to have? And that we,
I'll give you a copy of this and you can call them and ask.
I'm number 3, so I'd be happy to answer, if I may. I'm signature number 3, so I would be happy to answer. This board, this vacancy has been here since my first day, my first meeting, this vacancy became available. We've had, which everyone has complained about, 3 or 4 elections since then. This board has opted not to fill, to include a ballot question to fill that seat. The issue is that this requires 65 days. The override only required whatever it required, 44 weeks or whatever so there was not enough time. So this was filed back September 23rd, but there was not enough, and it was in the works before then, but there was not enough time to tack it on. I think that when we talk about cost, I think that democracy is one of the biggest things that we do here. When we have a board of 4 people, it's an uneven number, so if anything, we should get rid of one of us so that we at least have an odd number to carry out. We haven't had any ties yet, but I think that we are doing a disservice. The bylaws say we should have 5 seats filled. We should have 5 seats filled. Now it is up, we haven't done anything wrong, it is up to the discretion of the board as to whether or not they want to hold that election for that seat until this happens, where 210 registered voters cared enough to file petitions with the clerk's office saying that they wanted to hold an election, that the bylaws allow for that seat to be filled, and I'm sure that that one extra person, who knows, the person that's elected could come and sit here and bring us a $50,000 idea that no one on this board has been able to produce, including myself. So I think that could, it's worth it in the end, both for an ideological democracy sake, but also because of the talents and skills that individual could bring.
And this person will, or this seat, that will also up for re-election this May. So
Why don't we wait till May?
if you, say if we hold it the
Why
first,
spend
if they get elected, say if we held it the first week of January, they or someone else will be running again in May, some 4 or 5 months. That's, but our hands are tied because these people have, brought this petition forth. I'm gonna go this way.
If I recall correctly, did you people not, as a board, back in July, discuss this and vote unanimously that you were gonna leave that chair vacant because of the cost that this community could not bear?
It was, if I can, it was a discussion, not a vote. We did not vote on keeping that seat open. It was an item that was requested to be put on to discuss the possibility of holding it, and no vote was held
Who
on that
submitted
topic.
it? Who's the top name? Who submitted the petition?
The citizens, petitions to the town
Who
clerk,
submitted it?
they don't need a submission if it's to the
You
town
always
clerk.
always have to have a submission. Who submitted the petition?
If you'd like to look at it, it's right here. It's not, the first name on the petition is,
No, like a recall, you have to have
Christine.
4 people with a,
It's not a.
Right,
like
it's
an
not a
affidavit
requirement,
thing. That's
right.
not this. This just, you go request these sheets, you can hand them out and go, you can get 10, you get 20, you get whatever, however you do it. Diana, I'm gonna go, my peripheral is,
This is to all four of you. And I'm having to be very careful here because I'm very angry.
Amy.
In my opinion, given the financial climate in this town, this is irresponsible to spend $5,500 for an election for a person that may be in office January, February, March, April, and part of May. And then that seat is up again. This is ridiculous. And if you vote to do it, even though it may be democratically correct, you're not doing the right thing for the town.
We have no choice to vote on this. All we do is set a date.
Just have to
We have to do
And
this.
time.
It's a petition, it's the way things work.
Because there's a law here that says we have to do
Do
it.
this.
You've
Mr.
broken
Mitchell.
laws before.
Not a state law.
But
State law will end up in cuffs.
try to limit our law breaking.
Well, then those people, those 210 people should pay for it. Should pay for it.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, you know, I have a serious concern being a, past selectman, and I want to know is if we have the election as soon as we can, if there would be enough time afterwards to have a recall election. I mean, could we get a recall election in after this person gets appointed? If, he pissed us off day 2 of his election, could we recall him before he would be terminated? And if this is not solved, then this deprives me of my right to set a record in this town and be recalled twice. So I do believe that this is a waste of money and it should not happen. And I will say that on town floor.
Quick math, you might be able to squeeze in a recall, but
I'm feeling
gonna be
deprived
tight.
already.
It's gonna be tough.
I agree.
it would be, Will, and then,
Two things here, and I'm looking from the financial aspect, is that $5,500, as she said, is a burden. We don't really have that money banging around in the budget. I'm looking at, and I see this happening too often for what I consider sometimes frivolous items. It can happen, but it's frivolous. We should probably consider putting a bylaw in that anybody that does these type of petitions and signs these type of petitions, as these 200 people, maybe the town should require them to pay for the $5,500 than the rest of the community. They would probably have second thoughts then, because now that's, I know it sounds like a tax to them, but maybe they would have such considerations, because this is anything under a year as far as having an election and charging that amount of money when we have financial problems, especially when we were talking about an override. It's just, it's beyond belief that people would consider that. I mean, they have the right to do that, but I mean, as a concerned citizen for the finances of the community, I see that as irresponsible in some ways. Yes, you can put somebody on there that could come up with a $50,000 idea. Why isn't that person sitting out here to come up with a $50,000 item? I mean, I don't see people, I see people not participating to the level that they should in getting, in that, and I don't want to take it end up belittling that, but it just seems that we have a tendency in this community, for whatever reason, to waste money. That's how I'm viewing it, from a financial standpoint.
okay, yes.
You said you have, after 65 days, you have to have an election. Is it an open-ended thing? Why don't you just have, when you have your next general election, say, okay, we're gonna have an extra seat here. Have it in May when you have your general election. That's after 65 days, and you're meeting the 11th of the law says you gotta have it after 65 days, not before 300
Right.
days or whatever,
You said the date, we can set the date
for the May
whenever
election
we
and
want.
We'll have it then. And let
So-
people go, vote.
Yes.
Well, just in response to that, I can guarantee that whoever votes to do that will probably lose about 210 votes from people when it's then
You don't have
requested.
210 votes now.
The-
You probably don't have those votes now.
Signs on a racetrack, another place.
Here's the bottom line. we, at least for me, we spend, there are a lot of things. If the bottom line is just money, this town would run, we could lay off a few people. Obviously, I'm not saying we should. If the bottom line is dollars, if that's all we care about is money.
Hold on,
No, no,
hold
no.
on.
Listen to what I'm
Please,
saying.
Please, please.
Listen to what I'm saying. I said we shouldn't do that if all that matters is money. So how you gauge what we do is just money. I'm sure Will could give us an idea to save $1 million tonight and the town could still function. Money is not the most important thing in running the town. It is not. There were other.
We voted on all that. We tried to save money, but everybody wanted an override, so.
There are, if I can finish, there are more important things than the $5,500. Regarding Will's comment about you should be responsible, or whoever signed it should be responsible for paying that, state law gives us the right to do so. I noticed on your list of things, this town hasn't gone to bid for insurance for how long? We could have saved $1 million in insurance fees. Should the Board of Selectmen be required to pay that $1 million for not pursuing that option for the last decade? I mean, if all that matters is money, that we can save money, but something that's important as democracy and voting to fill these seats. Many people complained that we had a dictatorship running this town before of a small group, and it seems like maybe that's what we're trying to head towards again now, with so many people worked up about trying to fill a seat that has been open for months.
So, you're gonna take the 5 hours away from us that you just gave back to pay for this election. That's what'll end up happening.
$5,000 will not make a difference in.
Oh, yes, it
Some
will.
people will.
Luann, then Bo.
My question then is, we just went to town meeting, voted the override, X amount of dollars was gonna go to the town clerk to pay for that election. So where in the budget that we just voted for, are you gonna get the $5,500 to pay for it? I guess that's our question. I mean, there's no money in there to get it. You're giving back the employees their hours. You had to reimburse Carol for her special elections and ballots, and you had to reimburse the school. Now we have to come up with another $5,500. Where do they expect us to come with it?
Well, I will say that, if I can, I was arguing that as a petition signer. As a selectman, I'll say that we don't have a choice. The law says that we have to pay for this. We could. And just like, and I already had this discussion with Mr. Ritter, there is no, at least as far as I believe that we could find out without spending money on town council, nothing that requires us to hold that election. It clearly would go against the spirit of the law, and 210 townspeople who pay taxes, who cared enough to ask that that seat be filled, we would be saying no and slapping them in the face. And if that's what this board ultimately decides to do and set that election for whatever it is, May 1st or whenever our election is, then that's every right of this board. So I feel if a majority of this board feels strongly this is a waste of money, then that's what they should do, and I would advise them to do that.
I don't think it's a waste of money, they're saying. It's, where's the money?
Okay,
I mean, I don't think anybody's
right.
against filling the seat. I
But
mean,
then-
it should be five.
But then a majority of this board, if they agree with that, then I say that they should set the election date for, and if that is incorrect, then we'll have another meeting and change it if the law says otherwise. So if we're gonna complain about it and not take any action on it, it's immaterial to continue to belittle the people.
I just have to point this out one more time. It's not a democracy if you elect somebody that could affect this town without that, in such a short period of time, that nobody could launch a recall election and get him out of there before he damaged the town. And this is what's happening because there's not enough time in there for anybody to launch.
You would get them out quicker than a recall because they'll be up for election in 4 months.
Well, yeah, but in
So-
between, you're just giving them carte blanche, they can do whatever, because there's not enough time to recall them and get them out, so there's no point in this.
Okay, yes.
How many are running for this seat?
We don't
I
know.
am.
You don't know, it has to be.
You're running?
Oh, I'm gonna see if I can get recalled twice.
As a move to town.
Unless we annex Phillips there. No, when we set the date, then the clerk can start her process.
Post it.
They post it and then announce it, when nomination papers will be out, when do they have to be turned back in, certify them, she does her stuff, and then sets up.
I would say
the thing.
obviously it's probably some of the ones that are under 210 signed. That makes sense to me. But I mean, what if you had 3 or 4 running?
Just like rebuttal to what Bob has to say, I mean, even if you brought somebody in, say you held your election January 1st to May, you're gonna see that they're not doing a good job, they're not gonna bury the town, they're gonna turn around, they're not doing a good job, don't reelect them. Because they're going up in May, one more time.
Well,
I guess,
yes.
I apologize for raising the question
But
about
we
where's
wasted
the money.
$5,000.
But it's true. Where's
No,
the
no,
money?
it's no apology at all. Having said all that, no, the money, the emergency fund from the advisory board can
We struggle to take and end up saving the town money from the advisory board standpoint. And it just rubs me negatively when we end up, and I, excuse the term, piss away the money, so to speak, and just willy-nilly on a short period of time. Now, I could have, if this was over a year before, and say this was in May, June timeframe, I could have actually said, yes, to fill that makes sense for a year. Under a year, it's a cost analysis approach that I used in business that when I end up looking at finances.
Yes.
Just, sorry. One thing I will say though, if anything, so when you elected me, obviously, or all of us, unless you were filling a recall seat or something, that, you know, it's a three-year term. So you're stuck with me for 3 years. What, we have to pay $5,000.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
I'm ready to give next
We
week.
can impeach.
Well, I'm gonna start a petition next week.
When your 6-month time is up, then they can fire you.
6 months, yeah, then you can do that.
All right.
Okay,
Are we going to
can I finish
say-
my thought before I was
Yes.
interrupted? Thank you. So I have a 3-year term until you can convince the majority of the town to get rid of me. I have a 3-year term. You paid $5,500 for that, and you're basically stuck with me without spending $5,500 more to have a recall to get rid of me. You're stuck with me, or any of us, for 3 years. By electing someone now, they will be basically you'll be spending $5,500 for them to have the seat for 5 months, and you can decide whether or not you think you want to either benefit the town with 3 more years of their service, or luckily we cut that off in the bud, because we're going to have to hold that, pay that money to hold that election anyway. So if anything, you get, or it's not, wasting the money. Besides giving people the right to vote for $5,500, which people have. That's kind of a big thing in this country, voting and democracy. At least it was when I went to school. You get the opportunity to test this person out so that they can't do 3 years worth of damage. Because if they get up here and you find them miserable, then you have the opportunity to get rid of them right away.
By the way, I would be just as upset spending $500 to get rid of you and a recall as I am to take somebody on. So it doesn't make any difference. I'm talking about the finances and spending money that we don't have. That's all I'm talking about.
Okay,
I will make a motion that we hold a special election on January 14th to fill the vacancy.
and that would be,
I know it's more than 65 days.
no, that would be, because the 7th is a Tuesday.
You want to do the 7th?
No, I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out what day the 14th
The
is.
14th is a
That's
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. And just so you all know, you can fire me for free in May.
We still have
With
to
no
pay
extra cost.
$5,000
No extra
for
cost.
another election. $5,000.
Well,
We
there's no
still
extra
have to
cost to
pay.
fire me.
So we're not winning as taxpayers.
Jeff, just one question for clarification. After you have a legal election, isn't there like 6 months waiting period before you can even have a recall? It's
Yes,
kinda like-
it's 6
Yes.
months.
So there is no time in there. You might have to wait till May to run. So why have the election now?
Okay.
I made a motion for the 14th. Would you rather have the 7th?
No, make a motion, we'll see if we get a second
I'll-
vote
I'll
on it,
make
and
the
then we can
14th.
adjust from there.
January 14th. It's a Tuesday.
And that would be the second Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion made for January 14th, second Tuesday of 2014. There's a motion, do I have a second?
Even though I strongly disagree with doing this, but because we're bound by the law, I will second the motion.
All right, a motion made and seconded to have a special municipal election on January 14th, 2014, to fill the vacant seat on the Board of Selectmen. Any further discussion? Going. Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Doug?
Just like bone.
Say no.
No.
All right. It would be very hypocritical for me to vote against this. Even though I don't agree with it, I know we don't have the money. I'm a strong proponent of citizens petition and citizens being able to have a say in their government. And again, I personally don't agree with it. However, my personal opinion has nothing to do with my duty. So I will vote yes. So we can, Deb, if you would contact the town clerk and let her know that.
Actually, it'll be Monday morning for close.
Yeah. And that is that. I know it's 4 months. I know, it is what it is. As I said, I would be very hypocritical in my beliefs and thoughts.
I understand all
Diane.
that. Where are you gonna get the money?
Advisory.
We'll figure that out.
Is
Yes.
that saying that this doesn't have to come before the special town meeting now?
The state law says we have to do this, so that's what's happening.
Wasn't that on the agenda for the special town meeting, is that?
No.
Or am I wrong?
No, there's two citizens petitions on the special town meeting. This is a special election, two different things. If someone said that this was town meeting, it's incorrect.
This is to call for a special election.
I agree, I understand that.
Yeah.
But is it coming before the special town meeting?
No, it
It's
can't.
just to call for a ballot election.
Yeah, this is,
All right.
yes, this is just, we're just voted to let Carol know, because the soonest it could happen is 65 days from today, or from Monday.
Soon.
And you can't have it any sooner by law. So that would be, Christmas time.
How much could we run over? Is there anything on that?
Oh, no, we could have said May 1st.
Yeah, they could have said,
Oh,
yeah.
Sure, just like Bona there, federal government, same thing. I'll back down, just like Bona, same thing.
So,
California.
the next,
Yeah, hello, it's still right.
the next thing on the agenda is budget cuts or increases for the balance of the fiscal 14 town charges.
John's not well.
I took the liberty of posting a Board of Selectmen's meeting for this coming Tuesday. It is the day before, and I did that, I personally expected the override to fail, and I expected we would be having a less cheerful meeting, and I expected there would be more questions and more work to do. So there should not be any cuts, just be increases to the school assessment, to the salary accounts of various departments to get employees back to where they were 2 years ago. So if selectmen are comfortable that the coordinator with the advisory, we could plug those numbers into the accounts without further discussion or thought, if anybody has any issues. Like I said, we do have, Jeff.
Happy to clarify, I've also had requests to move money within lines from the Board of Health, the police chief, and the assessors, all money, move from this account to that account. You would do it in a special election anyway. So I'm prepared with the approval of town council, to create a motion to do as directed, which is to increase those salary lines and do these moves as requested. And then I could bring that to the board on Tuesday for your approval prior to the special town meeting.
Yeah, because I believe the
You can
article.
look it over, at least, ask questions
Right.
prior to going to the meeting.
So if anybody, churning over this over the weekend or anything, if you have any questions or things that you think, we should talk in public, we do have a meeting scheduled. We can always cancel it, it's just not always, it's easier to cancel it than it is to try to have a quick meeting. And the article that our town council crafted, which is a very smart cover-all article that has in it, decreases and prepare for if the override had failed, or increases to town and school choices, because the override did pass. And that exact wording and article has been used in other communities, so it's all legal and works. Our town council crafted a very good article. So now what we just need is the motion to do what the voters authorized or said they would do at the ballot. But again, if anybody thinking over this, looking over things, you shoot an email, make a call, we can always have that meeting Tuesday if we need to. I just thought it was a good idea to cover the bases, just in case. Anything, if anybody says, hey, what about this, or could we do that or that? So if the board is comfortable with doing what the coordinator discussed, then we can just pass on this, because there's really nothing to talk on. Now, we have a request brought by a selectman to talk on updates. A while back, we requested send a letter to the Templeton Light. They received copies of contracts over $5,000. The water rate study released as a public record, and the Templeton Developmental Center, which I understand has contacted Municipal Light and Water, and I understand that light-wise, they don't have a problem putting out additional infrastructure electric-wise up there, but I think the water is a different story. I don't think they want to, I don't know if they have the funds to touch that. So this was back in, actually, he sent a letter, the board did it in June. We talked about it again in August. And I don't believe we gotten anything back as far as the material requested. I believe we got a letter stating that it hadn't been gathered or anything yet.
He asked for additional time, I believe,
I think it was till the end of October.
end of October, which is coming up.
So perhaps we could, I don't know, email or phone call or a letter would be more formal, at least it would be on the record. Just as a reminder, or asking, is that date, the end of October, still good for the information that the board requested from the manager and the commissioners?
Or maybe we could ask them to attend the next selectmen meeting on the 28th.
That would be, request the manager to attend. And that would be per Mass General Law. Are there any members of the board have any other thoughts on that? Send a letter requesting.
Yeah, send a letter or just ask if, they can attend on the 28th. That's,
And if the October
Manager,
deadline,
the
end of
commission.
October is still,
the manager.
Just the manager?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we can't really mandate the commission showing up. Okay, I would entertain a motion to send a letter to the manager of the Light and Water Commission, one, asking on the information still being available at the end of October, and for him to attend our next meeting on the 28th of October.
I will make that motion.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Bob, do you have a question on it?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. You asked for this back in June. They asked for some time. You gave them some time. I don't think that you should, be asking if they want to extend the amount of time. I think you ought to tell them that you expect the information. When they said they would give it to you by October. So I think, maybe when you write the letter, you tell them that you expect it. That's nice, and then there's just too nice.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing
When
none.
When Cabot Cheese takes that over, are we going to get any tax revenue for that piece of land? Cabot Cheese is going to take it over, if you don't believe me, ask Furrow School, ask Van Roast the Pigs, yes, that's all up, it's all up. Are they going to pay us any extra for the water, the lights and everything else? Are we going to get any revenue back from taxes from that land? My good friend Brewer, he offered us a piece of land, we could have anything up there, we have first choice. And what's the choice to give for a school, up on a hill? Why didn't they let us have a nice piece of land? Right to top.